Everybody ready?
All right, you're live.
Thank you. Welcome everybody to the school committee meeting of August 4th, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. May I have an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Remember to mute. Thank you, Tim. May I have a second? Please unmute yourself. I can't read lips.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Okay. Roll call, please. Jenn Erichsen?
Aye.
Okay. Steve Sodovic?
Aye.
Tim Lepre?
Aye.
Thank you. Pauline Proch, aye. Zona Butler is not on at this time. Thank you. So this is Pauline Proch, Chair of the Nantucket School Committee. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Jenn Erichsen, Vice Chair.
Aye.
Tim Lepre?
Aye.
Steve Sodovic, Secretary? No, you're there, Steve.
There I am, aye.
Thank you.
Well, I was trying to look at the revised agenda.
No excuses. Thank you.
Ah,
And Zona Butler is not on at the moment. Staff who are presenting tonight, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Superintendent Elizabeth Hallett.
Aye.
And School Committee Clerk Logan O'Connor.
Yes.
Thank you. Good evening. This open meeting of Nantucket School Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order that came out March 12th, 2020 in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order, which you can find posted with agenda materials for this meeting, allows for public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment, which will be coming shortly. For this meeting, Nantucket School Committee is convening by video conference on the town website, identifying how the public may join. And so if you do care to have public comment, it is through YouTube, and the chat is on and active. I will remind folks, please, who are participating in the meeting, I can see everybody on the screen. So if you have a comment or a question that you would like to ask, would you please kindly raise your hand? So I can see you and I will call on you. No, Mr. Sodovic, not right now. Hold on, because I'm explaining. Please raise your hand for comments. And once I have called upon you, then please unmute and ask your question or state your comment. Otherwise, it's really difficult to manage the dialogues back and forth. So I just remind everybody for that protocol as for virtual meeting. And I'd like to open up for public comment. Steve, yes, while we're waiting for public comment.
Well, that's what my question is about. Is somebody watching the chat on YouTube to see if there are questions that we might want to entertain?
Yes, sir. Jenn Erichsen is on that.
Excellent, thank you.
And yep, you're welcome. Okay, so we know that there is a delay on YouTube. So we are going to give it some time for comments to come through. And I've chosen Dr. Hallett to sing a song while we're waiting. Just joking. Not really. All right, so we are going to give some time. I don't know that the chat is available for you, Jen, to let me know if there are comments. So I wonder how we're going to do that, unless you would probably unmute yourself and you would need to, if that's the question out, because clearly I can't see the chat.
Logan suggested that I can text her or I can get on, whatever you prefer.
Okay. For timing wise, I think there is a delay. So I want to make sure I'm not cutting anybody off, and I want to make sure everybody's got time to put in their questions. Logan, can I call on you for your comment?
Just with the delay, it might be faster if Jen gets it to you directly rather than third party it through.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. So as we are waiting for public comments to come in, tonight we are going to hear presentations from Dr. Hallett as to the updating of where she is with her reopening guidance plan. And I think we all received the letter from Roberta Santa Maria with the safety walkthrough, which was very helpful to read. Thank you for forwarding that. And then I know we'll be discussing the revised calendar that is just up tonight for presentations and discussions. It is not up for vote. Okay, I've got 10 after 6. Jen, can you give me a shake of your head, yes or no, if there are any comments to come in? No. Okay, if you get any comments while throughout the evening, I guess, okay, so people are saying that the YouTube, so Matt, if you can hear me on for channel 18, I'm getting notification that the chat is not available on YouTube. If you could look into that for me, I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting, but if you could look into that, and then
The chat is able.
me because
It is working on YouTube. The chat is able.
It is. Okay. Okay. So we're going to start. If questions come in, if you would just let me know, Jen, that would be great. You could email or text me. Thank you very much. All right, so moving on in the agenda, I'd like to invite Dr. Hallett to begin her presentation and discussions. Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to give you a little overview on what we've been doing since our last school committee meeting, which happened on the 24th. We've been working pretty hard to kind of flesh out our comprehensive plan and allow that to incorporate a more specific information around teaching and learning models, namely the hybrid model and the remote learning model, which we mentioned in our last meeting. And that's where we will be focusing our time and looking very carefully at how to bring our children back in safely under a hybrid model within the school buildings. The hybrid model, just as a review, is where a certain percentage of children will be in the building at any given time, and that will provide the adequate distance and safety measures that we can take to make sure that we can have in-person instruction, yet still mitigate any sort of possible virus. So we have remained true to what we had shared the last time with regard to our schedule. We will have our children in the building on Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday will be a remote day for all students. This will allow for deep cleaning and sanitizing in all of the schools, and it will also allow for time built in for teacher planning, professional learning, and some collaboration. So Wednesday will be a remote day, and then students will return. A new cohort of students will come in Thursday and Friday. So we have divided our students into 4 cohorts. Cohort A includes children who will benefit really a lot from that in-person instruction. These are expected priority students from the Department of Education as a requirement. So we need to invite students with disabilities, English learners, economically disadvantaged students, and any students whose safety is at risk at home. These students have been invited to come to school in person on both Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. So we have identified through a lot of discussion in our leadership team with our principals and with others about 460 children out of our total that would fall into the cohort A group. Cohorts B and C are for children who will come back in person for 50% of the time. This will allow clearly for smaller class sizes and safe distancing within the classroom. Cohort D is made up of children who will remain in a full remote learning model. So yesterday we sent out commitment surveys to parents, an important survey because it will give us the information that we need to really move forward with planning. One survey was specific to parents in cohort A, and the other survey was for cohorts B, C, and D. We would like parents to commit to a learning model so that we can move forward. We can build our class rosters, redistribute students as we need to within the spaces that we have. Clearly, it's also really helping us with scheduling of staff and all of those pieces. So we are really asking that those surveys be completed no later than this coming Friday. For those families who do not fill out the survey, we will try to be reaching out by phone to see if we can get their answer so that we have a clear idea of what the expectation is with their student next year. We do understand that this is difficult for parents to commit without really knowing all the details of the learning model, but we're in a challenging position. It's kind of a which comes first, the chicken or the egg. We will know more about our daily class schedules, about how we are going to keep children in smaller groups, and all of those pieces once we know who is coming back into the building. So it's a tricky situation, and we're asking for people's assistance with this. So at the middle and high school, there's definitely some changes that we will be seeing within the instructional day. For middle and high school, we're looking at longer block schedules for students to avoid some of that too much movement within the building. We are looking at keeping students in groups as opposed to having a lot of different class changes occurring. There are still so many pieces to determine, but we're getting there. We're slowly moving forward. We are very lucky that we have a group of expert teachers who have come through in that teaching and learning and on all of our task force to kind of assist us and be part of the scheduling and also in part of that lesson and unit design within the hybrid model. Like many districts on Cape Cod, we are strongly considering a phased-in approach. This means that we would begin our first days of school with smaller groups of students coming into the buildings while remote learning is still happening for the others at home. This will allow for some of those important health and safety protocols and new routines for all children and staff to be taught and practiced. Mask breaks, using the bathroom, hand washing, movement throughout the building, all of those pieces have to be practiced. They're new protocols and everyone is learning. So having smaller groups in our first days will kind of help to reinforce those new procedures and new safety protocols put into place. It will also give it gives teachers and administrators a chance to introduce these new protocols with children and deal with some of the issues that may come up. I mean, we are assuming that it's going to be, we would love for everything to be beautifully smooth on the first few days, but we know that there are many things to be considered at all times, as always. There will still be assignments and learning activities for all children who may not be in the building on those days. So, but the idea is that in our first 3 days, we will have everyone who should be in the building at some point in our hybrid model will be in and have a chance to go through those protocols and understand what it's going to look like. So we have a working draft of our comprehensive plan. It is lengthy, and we're looking to trim it down and to hone it a little bit more. This plan outlines all of the aspects that school committee, teachers, parents, and the public really want to know. This includes transportation, it includes meal services, cleaning protocols, health and safety, learning models, what remote looks like, what hybrid looks like. There are a lot of pieces, and we're still working on it. It is a true indication or a true example of building the plane while you're flying it. I feel like I've been using so many different metaphors over the last several weeks of presentation to you, but it is true. And it is, we turn a corner and think we've gotten something worked out, and then we realize that there's something we missed. So it is a constant improvement process. And I think all districts are feeling very much in the same way.
Beth, you muted yourself somehow.
Yeah, I don't know how I must have hit the space bar. Sorry about that. We really hope to be releasing this plan to you no later than the weekend, so that we are, and so that is out to school committee, it's out to parents, it's out to teachers, staff, everyone. So there is enough time between when we release it and when we have our school committee workshop to answer any questions, to make any changes or tweaks that we are able to make. Again, it is a draft plan, and there will be a disclaimer that says that we can change that plan at any time based on the health and safety issues that may be happening in the community, metrics, lots of different pieces. So we have to use it as a draft and fluid plan, but we will have it ready for you by the weekend, we hope. So I wanted to add a few updates from the commissioner. We had a phone call with the commissioner yesterday. We usually have 1 or 2 calls a week, and there's a lot of guidance that comes out regularly. So in the updates from the commissioner from yesterday, a couple of things that he mentioned. He is still strongly recommending that districts return in some form in-person learning come September, based on the health metrics that are in place in Massachusetts and also surrounding states. He mentioned very clearly that other states around us in New England are returning to in-person learning. So although this is not confirmed, he also mentioned that future federal funding may be tied to whether or not school districts will be teaching students in person. Yet to be confirmed, but just something that we would need to kind of keep in our minds, of course. Good news is that Chapter 70 funds will be level funded for the state, and the Coronavirus Relief Fund grant, which will offer close to $225 per student, will be available to us with these funds that are to be expended until December 30th. We also learned that the state will be promoting 2 different learning management systems, and these are basically remote platforms where many different things can come together. Like you can have, it's like a one-stop shop kind of for remote and virtual learning. These can be obtained through the state, through the vendors of the state at a reasonable cost. The commissioner will be releasing the names of these 2 vendors tomorrow. I'm assuming they were putting the contracts together. And Nantucket has actually already begun to look into our own learning management system. Particularly, we looked at Schoology, which is one that we're guessing that might be one of the 2 that the state may be recommending. And as I said, this would be a one-stop shop for all assignments, grades, assessments, parent access, student access, everything in one place. And all of the different applications in technology can be used within Schoology. So it doesn't lose the integrity of other applications that can be brought in. So we can take advantage of this if it happens to be the same same learning management system that we're looking at, Schoology, and that would be a reduced cost. Of course, we will need training and practice in many things, not just this technology, but many, many things. I would like to address this in the adjustment to our school day calendar, and that is item C in our agenda. Would it be possible, Chair Proch, to be able to jump to C within those presentations, and then I will address the building walkthroughs after?
Absolutely. No problem.
Thank you. Okay, it's a nice flow. So I'd like to look for a minute at the adjusted calendar, which you have received. Just to clarify, the commissioner has agreed to reduce the school year from 180 days to 170 days, which is giving the district, all districts in Massachusetts, the opportunity to use 10 days at the beginning of the school year, with the first day of school starting on September 16th. So this will allow for training on those technology tools that I mentioned before, on those health and safety protocols that we will have to know very well and be ready to train our students with. New hybrid instructional model, understanding how we're building lessons and units within a hybrid model and how that would look also for remote learning. And also considerations of social and emotional learning. We know our students and our staff are coming back in a very different environment, and we need to have social and emotional opportunities for us to strengthen people's experiences when they come back. We want to make sure that people feel safe and they feel cared for and secure. So those extra 10 days are a wonderful gift, and we will absolutely take them and use them. And I think it will be a great opportunity for us to really build and be ready to invite students back in the building and invite staff back in the building as well safely. So what that means for us is that our 4 pre-service days that are part of our contract, we would like to shift those to the Wednesdays. If you see the calendar, you will see on the Wednesdays that are with pink boxes, to have them be full professional development days. And these would be September 23rd, October 7th, December 9th, and January 13th. So we would spread out our 4 pre-service days within the school year. And this would offer us an opportunity, again, to come back to some of those trainings, to have a chance to review, reset where we might need to. And at that point, we don't know yet if any of the model might change based on the health metrics that would come out. So having those days spread out in the fall, we feel would be really helpful to teachers and staff, and help us really build and make sure that we have appropriate training and support for all of our staff and teachers. This calendar has been vetted and approved by the district leadership team, and it's been shared also and approved with NTA leadership. So now we bring it to you for approval and of the amendments. I know that this is not a voting meeting for the calendar, but certainly we are ready at any time. So I'm ready to go on to building safety administration, if that's okay. You all received a report from the director of the Department of Public Health of Nantucket, Roberto Santamaria. He completed 2 walkthroughs with us on July 27th and July 30th. The first was with myself and Diane O'Neill, and the second was with the Health and Safety Task Force Committee, which included school nurses, some administrators, and union leadership as well. You have read the document, so I will just touch on some parts of the document for the public so that they can understand what Mr. Santamaria said. And you will see that Mr. Santamaria feels quite confident that Nantucket Public School buildings are, quote, well situated to reopen schools on a limited basis during COVID-19 pandemic. With safety measures in place, such as the desks 6 feet apart and all children and adults wearing masks, and regular hand washing and sanitizing, classrooms should provide minimal risk to staff and faculty. He continues to state that, to his knowledge, the HVAC systems in all of our buildings are up to the standard set by FEMA, and that the exchange rate of air in each classroom, including internal rooms, is sufficient to prevent transfer of the virus from classroom to classroom. He expressed in the document that areas of most concern would be when families who rely on school for childcare might underreport COVID symptoms of their children and perhaps send their children to school, and that is always a risk risk, not knowing whether or not a child might be infected. His suggestion to mitigate this risk is to educate our families, screen students, even with simple questions like, how are you feeling today? And always proper sanitation, making sure that hand washing, hand sanitizer is being used properly at all times. He also suggests that we limit the amount of intermingling of students between classes for extended periods of time. So it will be important that we limit congregation of students in certain places, and that we are monitoring carefully any behavior that might be otherwise. So administrative offices are considered to be areas of least concern, as long as the number of individuals entering and exiting can be limited. So visitors will our visitor protocols will definitely be different than we have seen. Outdoor areas, drop off and pickup, playground are not considered to be high risk areas as long as social distancing is appropriately followed. We thank Mr. Santamaria for his time that he spent walking through with us twice in our buildings, and we're really glad to have his partnership and his expertise to guide us as we navigate a safe opening. So I really appreciate that. We were hoping to present to you the HVAC formal audit that we completed. We did not receive the report, so unfortunately I cannot speak to it. But I would like to ask Ms. O'Neill if she has a moment, if there's anything that she might like to add or anything in particular that she could share with us that I might have missed in the report or in what she's doing. So if that's possible, that would be great.
Great. Thank you, Diane.
I spoke with Greg Burgess today from SMRT. He was putting the report together. He initially sent me a draft, but it wasn't complete, and I had a whole bunch of questions. And then at 5:30 this afternoon, he did send us a two-page sort of summary of how he felt about our HVAC systems. I'd be happy to share that with all of you. Sorry, Beth, I shared it with you very, very late, but I didn't get it until very, very late. It basically says our systems are in really good shape. We have a preventative maintenance program through Mechanical Air Controls, Inc. They come at least twice a year. We also, we spend a lot of money on maintenance of our HVAC systems in all buildings, and that includes the intermediate school. We have spent an awful lot of money this year in the intermediate school, upgrading and fixing things that have subsequently just kind of broken down. But we do spend quite a bit of time and money and effort making sure that those systems are running properly, making sure they're cleaned. All of the equipment gets cleaned at least twice a year. Filters get changed at least twice a year. Belts get changed once a year. Everything gets greased. I do have records that prove that they've been here and what they've done. And I guess that's about all. He sort of refers to some of the standards in his two-page document, and that we are up to standard. He touched on that we could sort of introduce more outside air into some of the classrooms, but we have to be careful with that because introducing outside air in this weather and even in early fall also introduces humidity into the rooms. And that could lead to a whole bunch of other slew of problems. Interior rooms, we purchased just to help, I guess, alleviate some of the stress that we were hearing about. We purchased air purifiers with HEPA filters. We'd be happy to purchase fans if that makes the staff happy, although, you know, the HVAC systems are capable of exchanging the air several times an hour, and that's what they're set up to do. So as long as everything's working well, I'm pretty happy.
Thank you, Diane. Beth, do you have anything else you want to add to your presentation before I go to questions?
I don't. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to call on each individual school committee member to make their comments and questions. I'll start with you, Zona, please.
Hello, everyone. Zona Butler. My question is, and I thought I saw the answer at the beginning of Mr. Santamaria's summary, about how many students, when you do the desk, when you space the desks 6 feet apart for social distancing, what's the maximum number of students you can get into a classroom?
So that's a good question. That also depends on the square footage of the classroom, because classrooms are all different sizes and also different shapes. So it's interesting because what we've been able to do is use the Canon design model, which I've talked about before. It's kind of and you'll have to help me, Diane. I know you've used it before. You plug in the number of students and you plug in some metrics with regard to the desks or tables that you have, and it kind of spreads out and tells you specifically how many students you can fit at certain distances. And when we did our feasibility study, we looked at 3 feet, we looked at 4.5 feet, and we looked at 6 feet. So on average, if there is an average of about 17 students in a classroom, if they are arranged in a pattern that keeps that 6 foot distancing, if there's like an average sized classroom, it could be 10 to 12 students, but we're going to see other classrooms that are much larger that could fit 15, and our largest rooms could fit 20, 30. It really depends again on the square footage and how that would look with regard to desks in the classroom. Obviously, adults have to be included, and space at the front of a room has to be accounted for. So we would be including teachers and TAs and any other adults that would need to be in the room as part of the calculation. So it's not a very specific answer, but it's different in a lot of different cases for buildings. So,
And at the risk of, having people go, what is she talking about? I'm going to say it anyway. Is it possible for us to fit all students in the school and social distance?
If we did that, and that was part of our feasibility study, if we brought everyone in at 3 feet or 4.5 feet, we could fit everybody in our classrooms and potentially have our larger rooms used for either what they're supposed to be used for, a gym or a cafeteria, or even additional classrooms. But at 6 feet, the problem is we have to use those classrooms, we have to use those spaces, and we need to hire more teachers. So the issue is, if we are taking our students and then dividing them in half, then we need, and I think our feasibility study, please forgive me, anyone out there in the district leadership team, I think it was around 54 teachers across the district that we would need to hire to be able to have everybody in our buildings to do that. And I don't see, plus we would have to buy a lot of new furniture, because we currently use tables in a lot of our buildings, and tables are great, except you can't fit more than one person at a table with a 6 foot distance. So desks, we'd have to buy a lot of new desks and furniture that way. So that's what we did in our feasibility study, and that's what brought us to believe that the hybrid model was the best.
Talking about the feasibility study, did we consider testing all students for COVID-19?
So that wasn't part of the feasibility study that we conducted, because that was for the Department of Education in regards to the ability to bring students in. We have not discussed testing of all students, and I'm happy to lean on the school physician for advice around that. It's challenging, because I believe that there are definitely results that could perhaps not be valid, I'm not sure. So I would certainly turn it over to an expert, as opposed to providing my own information on that, but we can certainly look into it.
That's all I have at this time.
Okay. Thank you, Zona. Tim, I'm going to call on you next, please.
I don't have any questions. I think no plan is good until it meets the enemy.
Well said.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Steve.
I want to hit right away on something Zona asked about. If we were, because I like the idea of testing everyone, not just students, but also staff, what would the cost be for that? Do we have any idea? Tim, do you know what these tests would cost us?
I know what the hospital is charging for asymptomatic people, and it's not covered by insurance. It's about 150. And the problem is that it tells you what's happening right then. It doesn't tell you what's happening the next day.
It's something.
Yeah.
Okay. Beth, could you, oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to?
I just wanted to comment, if possible, through the chair. So I did speak with Mr. Santa Maria again about this. We discussed this a little bit, and he says that it's really quite an extensive cost, and exactly the same thing as Dr. Lepre said, which is it only gives us a one-time reading on how everybody is doing, and it would only give us that security for that one moment at that time to really understand. He says the cost would be significant to the district, so he did not recommend that we consider testing. So
Yeah, I just ran my calculator, and 2,000 tests would cost us $300,000. So, shall I continue, Madam Chair?
Absolutely. Please.
Beth, could you expand a little bit on the first few days, the phasing in part? How many kids are you having in? You then eventually said 3 days worth.
So let me explain a little bit. Again, we're still hammering out details because we have to wrap our heads around every small piece to it. What we were thinking is if school will start for everyone, regardless of if they are at home or if they are in the building, on September 16th. So we will have remote learning planned and ready on September 16th for all of the students who are at home. But we were thinking that we would invite our first cohort A, to start on September 16th. Give them an opportunity to come into the buildings. It will be a smaller group because if all of the students opt to be part of cohort A, then that's about 460 students. That's across all 4 schools. So in that first day, again, it would give an opportunity for these students to become comfortable with the routines. It would give them an opportunity to be in the classrooms, kind of get a feel for what it's like. Teachers would have the opportunity to run through protocols with them. And then on the next day, we would invite an additional cohort. We would invite cohort B to be part of this. And so we would have cohort B and cohort A together. So a little bit of a kind of a rollout. And then on the final day, we would invite cohort C, but not cohort B. So we would only have, again, 1 day with all of cohort A, and then in the second day, cohort A and B, and then in the third day, cohort A and C. Because these cohorts are going to be working together anyway as they are invited for their days together in the classroom. So this would be an opportunity for every child to be able to get into the class and to have that experience. In some cases, our cohort A students are in substantially separate classrooms, and so those students would be together during the time that they were there, and it would give them an opportunity to kind of phase in that way. And then the next week, starting on September 21st, we'd like to have all students in a regular model, which would be Monday, Tuesday for cohort A and B, and then for Thursday, Friday, cohorts A and C.
Okay, I'm still not sure I understood that, but it's okay. I
I'll
am
map it out for you.
growing more and more concerned about the finances of all this, which is going to lead me to either a series or one big group question about what the hybrid model would cost. You gave us lots of hard numbers, admittedly estimates, for buses, drivers, monitors, subs, FMLA, custodians, additional teachers in all the buildings, et cetera. But you haven't given us those costs modified for a hybrid model. So I guess the easiest thing to do is to ask one at a time. In a hybrid model, are we going to have you figured yet what the additional busing costs would be? They were originally like $900,000 if we brought all the kids back.
So without, unfortunately, I might have to ask Mr. Angelov to if he's available to share what he has done. He's been working very hard with the Transportation Task Force Committee, and I'm sure he can share a little bit about that. We will need to be busing many fewer students, but we are also realizing as part of our surveys that we've been collecting data that a lot of families are not wanting to have their children be on the bus. So that is helpful because it will allow us to have to transport fewer students. If we don't have to do double runs, so to speak, if we don't have to actually do one bus route and then have the bus go out again, that will save us quite a bit with regard to additional funds for drivers and such. Monitors are not required, but they are recommended by the Department of Ed and by in the transportation guidance. So we will certainly look into that. And you know, we hope that we would be able to have monitors. And I know Martin might have the cost of that. But I think we can certainly look into that. So I'm going to see if he's available to share a little bit more.
Yes. Good evening through the chair. Yes, we've run numbers and we've talked with Cape Cod Collaborative several times. With Paul Hilton, I just got off a phone call with him about half an hour ago. And it's for transportation specifically, we're hopeful that we can use the buses we have, both the small and the large buses, and at reduced capacity, which would be about 32% of capacity. We can fit about 23 kids on the large buses and hopefully about 8 kids on the smaller ones. We might have to look at staggered start times, as Beth said, so that might alleviate the issue if we have a higher need of what we can transport on one run. But routes also might have to be redesigned to make it a little more efficient, the whole operation. Now, we will encourage, obviously, parents, if possible, to transport their children to school, as always. But again, we remain committed to provide transportation for kids that need it, and we'll look into it. Cost-wise, I don't think, apart from the monitors that Beth mentioned, that we might have to run into any large additional costs. The monitors, in total, if we have to get monitor on every bus, might be around $250,000 to $300,000, but in total. But we have talked with Cape Cod Collaborative, and we can possibly use them as well for other things within the district to help with monitoring kids during lunches and things like that. We'll see what the availability is. It's a lot of discussions. I don't want to confuse everybody. Or I don't want also to share numbers and get firm numbers to you, which might prove to be premature. So we're looking into it. I'm hopeful that within our budget and with the additional funding that we get, the Coronavirus Relief Fund totals $375,000. That is not shared with the private schools, so that is strictly to be used by the district. Albeit we have to use it by December 31st, I think would save us on a lot of costs related to the COVID-19. School lunch program is another major topic that we've discussed costs about. If we go with an in-classroom service model, which that's where we're leaning. We should be okay cost-wise. Again, we had to order carts and special containers to transport food to each individual classroom, which would be deeply sanitized after each use. But apart from that, we were looking to see what else we might need to do for the remote learners. We're looking at options to see if we can lease again, or possibly even looking to purchasing a food truck to see how we can serve the remote learners when they're not in school. Other costs for the school district, I think with the hybrid model, I think we should be okay additionally with our budget, provided all staff that we have on our budget is back and working. So I can take more questions. I don't know whether that provided more clarity or more confusion.
No, Martin, I didn't expect hard numbers today, but I am, just to be out front about it, we're already facing the $500,000 cut that the town placed on us, and we haven't addressed that yet. And so whenever it's possible to come up with real numbers, I think we need to look at them, because what I'm hearing and seeing as I monitor the listserv and, Mask puts things on Twitter, I'm not sure we can expect a lot more funding than what we already see. And that's practically level, except for the $300,000 one that you mentioned. And I have the document on that. And well, perhaps I should ask about a couple of these other things first and then finish on that. I'm very concerned about the custodial costs in the plan to bring back all of the kids. Beth, you estimated a need for maybe 8 additional custodians. I'm wondering how we can get by just with the people we have when we're going to still have, this is just a ballpark estimate, 1,000 humans in the buildings. When you look at half the class sizes, plus roughly, and I know these are rough, half the class sizes plus the staff, which is over 200, plus the high needs kids, we're looking at over 1,000 people in the buildings, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And I don't see how we can do that safely without additional custodians. And maybe as many as the 8 you originally cited under a full reentry plan. And that was over $500,000. So I think we need to look very hard at custodial staffing. Have you given any thought to that yet?
If I can ask Diane to share her thoughts, because she is in charge of the custodial services. So I just want to make sure of that. And before that starts, I just want to clarify that the budget cut that you mentioned is actually not a cut; it was a reduction of capital. So just wanted to clarify that. Go ahead, Diane, if you want to share a little bit about custodial.
Okay. My staff is very comfortable with being able to clean and sanitize the buildings every night. So cleaning the buildings is something that they do anyway. They wipe down every surface, they empty trash, they wash floors. The one different thing is we used to just use their Protexis or some other electrostatic mister when some child had been sick that day or something like that. Now, we will be doing it every single day after the classrooms are wiped down and cleaned. They will be misting the room and closing the door. The misters, you can't go right back in the room after it's been misted. You should leave it for several hours. They say it takes about 20 minutes to dry. I think my staff, we use the respirator type mask for safety. I am very comfortable that we are capable of this. I've looked into hiring more staff, and as I said last time, we are going to hire another custodian for the 2 to 10 shift at the intermediate school. And more about, I never really felt that we had an ample amount of staff over there. We are also going to hire a night supervisor because we lost ours right before the shutdown. He went on to a different job, which is fine. We are very, very comfortable, and I would be happy to walk any of you through our processes anytime to make you more comfortable. I meet with my staff at least once a week and more often every day, and we talk about these things. Is there anything I can help you with? In hiring more staff, I look at it, what am I going to do with them in 4 or 5 months when a vaccine comes about, or and we're comfortable. I don't want to overburden the supervisors either, just finding things for people to do. I think we're okay.
I guess what I'm wondering is additional needs during the day. As I read the protocols and what needs to happen if even one student is ill, and I think we can assume that's going to happen, we'll need more people during the day to be reacting immediately to those safety concerns. And I guess it still doesn't make sense to me how we could originally have been looking for 8 additional custodians. And now, in essence, you're saying we don't need any more, even though we're going to have 1,000 people in the buildings. I'm troubled.
Steve, I never said we needed 8. I don't know where that number came from. It didn't come from me. I never, ever said that. I said we needed 1 at the intermediate school. I went to Beth and I went to Martin and asked if I had the funding in my budget, and that's what we're hiring, 1. As far as if someone gets sick, there's a whole outline of what you have to do. And one of the things is you can't touch that room for 24 to 48 hours if somebody is found out that they have this virus. So maybe I'm not understanding what you're asking.
Well, no, I got the number of 8 additional custodians from Beth's preliminary plan for a full reentry. That was my starting point. So I think Beth wants to respond to that.
Yeah, I was going to say, Steve,
Yes.
I was just going to say, if we're going to let Beth jump in, please.
Sure. So in looking at a full reentry plan with 6 foot different distance, double the space in the building being used, the cleaning, if you are starting to move into other areas, because you're looking at cafeteria, teaching in a cafeteria and an auditorium, all of that, we considered that we probably would need 2 additional custodians at each building in looking at a full return with all students. But when you cut that down to even 60% or 50%, it changes immensely. So it changes with a reduction in the students coming in. So of course, I'm going to always take Diane's lead with that. And if her staff feels overburdened, I mean, we will definitely consider bringing on additional custodians. But at this time, in what we've run through, we feel that we can handle with the staff that we have. So
I'd like to make one more point before we close on this. We're not having any after-school activities in our schools. We're not letting any meetings in. We're not letting any outside people after 3 p.m. That's not going to happen. So before, my staff had to deal with all of that. There were sports inside, there were kids in and out, there were, meetings going on, there were a community school had classes going on, and they couldn't freely move about and clean, whereas now they can. I mean, I'm pretty comfortable. We have a good plan in place. And like Beth said, if something happened. And if we start to feel like we can't, we will definitely revisit this. Our main focus is safety of everyone, students and staff.
Great. Thank you, Diane. Thank you. Jen, can I jump over to you for questions or comments, please? Steve, you had finished, correct?
No, not exactly. I'm wondering about additional teachers and teaching assistants and nurses and where we would be with that with a hybrid.
So we have discussed that with regard to the need for additional teachers or TAs. If at this moment we're looking at filling our classes with teachers that we have available, clearly we will need to consider substitute coverage, and we know that that's going to be a need. So we're looking at possible positions of we're calling them kind of COVID floaters, meaning that they might be substituting for in a certain area for a certain period of time. But we know that we're going to be needing to build in kind of a permanent sub position to be able to cover. That is certainly something that we understand is important, especially if we do have staff that are ill or if there's a need for leave. We're looking at all of the options and what that would look like with regard to our numbers. But a lot of this will be determined also when we have a stronger idea of how many students will be opting to be remote. And that's going to help us a lot to understand where that falls in the next few days. With regard to nurses, we also have talked with our nurses about their needs and what they feel is necessary within the buildings. And at this time, we may need to add nurses assistants, but I have not received, we have not talked about having to double our nurse workforce, so to speak. But we certainly will look at whatever needs are necessary based on the recommendations, not only from them and also from the Department of Public Health. When we walked through with Mr. Santamaria and the nurses, there was discussion about that, and there was discussion about the number of or needs, et cetera. But that can be mitigated with location. So we are, and also with donning and doffing of protective equipment. So that was a good moment for nurses. They understood a little bit more about what that would look like, and that is also helpful as we go through. But all of these pieces, obviously, we're considering all the needs that are coming up. We'll have a better idea when we've got our numbers more settled and when we understand a little bit more about those the numbers in our classrooms, and we'll continue to keep things open with that. And certainly I'm working with Martin regularly to make sure that whatever funding we receive, either through our grants, through a very, very large stimulus package, which may be coming, they keep talking about it. So there will be funding available, and I think we will be we certainly will be well taken care of according to the Department of Education. They've been clear about that. So,
well, I wish I had the confidence that you did. I ask about substitute teachers in part because it isn't just if someone gets ill, they could also be quarantined. I mean, if they're in a classroom that has to be, those kids have to go home and be quarantined, then the teachers do too. And I would think that that's, even the commissioner's documents say we should plan on having COVID in the buildings eventually. And the financial aspect of that is something I think we really need to keep our fingers on. I have more questions about remote, but I think, Madam Chair, they might wait until people have a chance to ask about what Beth has presented so far. Does that sound okay?
That's a good idea. Yeah, thank you. Jen, sorry, coming back to you.
Thanks. Just my internet is unstable, so hopefully you can hear me.
We can.
Thanks. Yeah, I have a couple of questions, and hopefully these will be considerations as you hone into these plans. I know there's so much going on and your head must be spinning, Beth. One is about making sure that siblings are attending on the same days. That's something I've heard about from families, and I know as a parent of two kids specifically in the same building, I think it's a really important safety feature to having them attend on the same days.
Absolutely. We are going to be looking very carefully at how we schedule students, and we will absolutely have siblings attend on the same days for the convenience of the parents, but also if siblings take the bus, they can sit next to each other, which is great because we assume that they live together and that they do not necessarily have to social distance with their sibling based on that. So we are fully aware of that, and it is a bit challenging. Sometimes there are different last names, but all of our principals have been already thinking about how that's going to look. In our survey, we have given families the opportunity to choose for them or explain their preferences. We have also reserved the right to tell them that we may not be able to honor their preference based on the numbers that we see in each of the two cohorts. If we're looking at cohort B being Monday and Tuesday and cohort C being Thursday and Friday, we need to have those numbers to be fairly equal. So in other districts around Cape Cod and in other districts in the state, a lot of times there's a line being drawn through the alphabet. So A through L will come in the first session, and then M through Z will come in the second session. Obviously, you know, there are many ways to quote unquote skin the cat, but I think we will definitely be looking at siblings and making sure that that's happening because it's important that they're together.
Thank you. And then the only other question I had was in educating our families, and you know, which is a huge piece. I had spoken to you previously about thermometers and getting thermometers in everyone's hands, and you were potentially going to talk to Tracy about maybe applying for a grant.
Yes, in fact, Tracy has reached out to Jason Graciade first to see, first of all, just that direction, and she's also reached out to the Community Foundation as well. So we are in the process of looking into that, and I'll certainly follow up with her right away and find out where we're at with that.
Great, thanks so much, Beth.
Sure.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions. If parents wanted to have their children go to school 4 days a week, but they don't fall into the category that you had mentioned earlier, is that an option?
So we understand that there are parents who would like that, and we would certainly try to honor it if we could. There is one other element that we have to consider, and this may actually be a directive from the commissioner. He has been talking about that, that we consider parents of children parents who are actually Nantucket Public Schools employees and actually need to be in the buildings teaching while their children are also in the classroom. So if the commissioner gives that as a directive, we need to look carefully at our numbers and understand what that's going to look like and how we would need to look carefully at that. It is we would love to be able to offer to anybody and everybody who has that, but we have to keep our numbers at a certain level in order to safely socially distance and to keep the safety and health protocols under control with regard to numbers in the building.
Okay, thanks, Beth.
Sure.
I know you gave a very detailed outline of Group A, B, C, and D coming in. I got lost. So if you wouldn't mind sending me what that would look like. And the reason I'd like to see it is I've had some parents sort of reach out. Their concern is, you know, by the time they go back to school in September, the students will have been out somewhere like 6 months out of school. And they feel that it's important socially and emotionally that they come back to school after this large break and we make sure that they're reintegrated properly. And I believe that's what your plan is, but if you wouldn't mind sending the committee that so that I can better respond to families and assure them that that is our priority for us. I think primarily the comments were if students are a Monday, Tuesday cohort and we open up on Wednesday, it's a whole week of school really before, they get back in the class with their students. And lastly, a question for Diane. You were talking about the filtration and that we change our HEPA filters twice a year and that the report said we had a good system. What would it take to have an excellent system? And maybe you don't know the answer to that, but I wonder if there's anything that we could add to that to give a greater comfort to parents around the, yes, we are in compliance, but are there steps that we could exceed?
Not without
You're on.
dollars. I mean,
Not
schools,
without 500?
let me try to fix it.
I can't hear you, Diane.
Is that better? Is
That's
that better?
better, yeah.
Okay. Schools are not built with hospital HVAC systems. They're not built with HEPA filters, built with a lower, particle system. We are looking into a higher filtration filter, but that could cause problems with our system as well. Replacing the entire HVAC system would probably be about a 2-year project. And my guess would be, I don't know, $3 to $5 million just for the high school, middle school. I can't imagine that it would be any less. I mean, we're just doing right now, we're doing it in pieces. So we're doing what's called the penthouse A. And what that means is we just finished replacing all of the pool pack system and the energy recovery wheels, which take care of the air intake and exhaust above the gyms, the locker rooms, the pool, that whole area, the music wing. The frame has a brand new air conditioning system. So we're taking it in pieces. Before COVID even hit, we started doing these things. In about 10 years, the high school, most of the equipment, it will probably have been replaced. Since I've been here for 7 years, last year we probably spent $350,000 just replacing different pieces of equipment in the high school. So to say it's old, it isn't. Some of it is. Some of it is, probably 15 years old, but it's still in great working condition. It's been maintained. The intermediate school, obviously it's a brand new school. It has a different type of HVAC system. It's called air displacement. It's a dehumidification system, but every system brings in fresh air and has an exhaust system. When you walk into a room, you can see the vent. One's an exhaust, one's an intake, and one's an output. I mean, we've offered to buy, fans to make people feel better, to move air around or move it out of the room. If you put a fan in a window, say, pointing out, it's pulling air out of the room, and maybe that would make people feel better. But I'm going to say our HVAC systems are in fine working condition.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, thank you, everybody. I think at this point, we're going to let Beth and her committees continue to do the work. I know that things are changing daily, but this was a good outline, I think, and I think you've had a lot of questions from us too, and you've answered, just one moment, Steve. You've answered a lot of hard questions that I think we don't have the answers to necessarily. So I'm going to move on unless there is something that is specific to what we have just discussed. And Steve, I see you have your hand up. If it's a question pertaining, I don't want to keep throwing questions out necessarily that Beth doesn't have a definitive answer to, but Steve, if you have a question to what we were just speaking about, please go ahead.
No, I asked to be able to come back because of a couple of things in the protocols, not as many as I thought, and they're kind of hard to follow. They're very repetitive, but two things stand out to me. One was a question about what we do. It says, and I quote, exceptions must be made, this is to masking, for students with medical, behavioral, and other challenges who are unable to wear masks or face coverings. And I'll add to that, any students that we have who refuse for whatever reason, what are we going to do with them? Do they have to be separated to a different area of the building? And I don't need an answer to that now, but I do think it's something that we need to look into and be thinking about. And the other thing was, and again, it doesn't have to be resolved today. The commissioner's protocols say that when you've had a student or even a teacher or a staff member who has tested positively, been out of school, quarantining, isolating, whatever you want to call it, that repeat testing prior to return is not recommended. And I wonder if that's a good idea. I mean, if somebody has had COVID, they've been tested, we know they have it, why shouldn't they be tested negative before they return? Again, something to think about before we finish with the protocols. And
Absolutely.
Pauline, I don't know where this fits. I did ask to be able to come back to say a couple of things about remote learning. Is that
Okay. Let me just check with Beth. Are you able to?
I'd be happy to answer whatever I can.
Okay.
well? I think
Okay.
the easiest one is even if we went fully remote for whatever reason, initially or because of things that happen in the schools, that plan will include having high needs kids in school, right? In a sense, it wouldn't be fully remote that we would go to.
So if something happens like it did in March, where the governor shuts down schools, everyone goes remote.
Right.
The schools are closed. If it is a health related closure, then I'm going to follow what the state and local requirements are. And so if it is something that is not a local or state, if it's either, you know, we will try to keep our highest needs children in as we can, but clearly if there's a health issue, we're gonna shut down and go remote if we need to. We did thanks to Michelle Brady and Kelly Cooney and others, we did a pretty good job with the high needs students that did go remote in our remote learning spring. And certainly it is possible, but we understand that it is also really best for them in many ways to be back in the building. So we will do what the state requirements dictate.
Okay, I assumed as much, and the protocols do cover that. I would just like all of us to consider, this is my last thing on the remote, the risks still that are going to exist with the hybrid. And our metrics in Nantucket are trending upward. I mean, we are one confirmed case shy of having triple the number of cases that we had on June 22nd. And if over the course of the next month, we still have time, but if over the course of the next month, we start to see that upward trend continue, I think we need to look hard at starting remote for some period of time. That's actually why I asked about the high needs kids. Even if we were to decide to start remote, I'd be concerned about those kids. And the other reason I think we need to look hard at it is we don't know yet what the finances are. I mean, if we have to hire those teachers, pay extra to the bus drivers, all of those things, we need to be concerned about where that money's going to come from. Just something for us to keep in mind as we move along.
Okay, thanks, Steve. Beth, do you want to respond to that?
Thank you. Yes, I understand your concern, Mr. Shortovik, and I, absolutely, we will be following what the recommendations are. In talking with Mr. Santamaria when he came through the walkthroughs, we asked about that question: what happens as things tick up? And he continued to say that our metrics at the moment are less than 1% in the community, and that we are in good shape. Obviously, things can change between now and when school opens, but I'm really going to follow the recommendations that he gives with regard to the ability to open school. As for funding, as I mentioned, we have been assured by the commissioner that if we are in need, there is federal money on the way, and that we have we are provided our Chapter 70 funds level funded, which is great. The coronavirus relief fund that we have is $375,000, and that is quite that's excellent for us to be able to use on things that are COVID related. So and then we also have the CARES Act, which we have also we have that funding already approved, and at the moment we have not needed to dip into it. So Martin, I'm not sure if you want to add anything additional. Certainly you are on certain listservs when it comes to funding, but just to close out Mr. Stortovik's concerns.
Martin, do you have any?
Yes, it's like I said, it's a moving target. So far, yes, we do have the CARES Act and the coronavirus relief fund that totals about $470,000 for the district alone. We do have some savings within the budget. Unfortunately, there weren't. For instance, we had budgeted for summer transportation throughout the summer. Those funds haven't been touched, so there is savings there. So we are hopeful that, like I said, we're hopeful within our budgets that we have, we will be fine to open the schools and start the school year. Now, however the situation plays out, I'm pretty sure that state and federal authorities would respond as they have already, and that's been the assurances that we've received, especially from the Department of Education. They've been saying that they're monitoring the whole state of Massachusetts, not just the state, but what's happening around the state as well, and trying to respond accordingly. As Beth mentioned, Chapter 70 is level funded at $3.6 million. There were concerns that Chapter 70 funding for Nantucket might be cut, so that's good news actually. Even though we're not getting an increase, we're keeping, so that money is coming. And again, we wait and see at this point. I mean, I think once every district submits their plan and everybody sees where people are going, the financial needs will follow what we're seeing as trends and how people decide to open the schools. That's been the overwhelming sentiment of all the school business officials that I've talked to, that I've seen on listserv. It's just unfortunately it's a wait and see type of thing. So we have to exercise some patience and let it start and evolve. But again, I remain confident that our budget will be fine for the upcoming school year.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you for the good discussion. Zona?
Sorry, I don't want to prolong things. I think this is where I need to mention a couple of things that have been on my mind. When we're talking about facilities and the sanitizing and that sort of thing, I just keep in mind that I think even bathroom breaks. So the whole bathroom is not going to be free for all. Somebody has to go to the bathroom. They're only allowed to use one of the two stalls that are open. and wash their hands at the one sink that's open, that sort of thing. Otherwise, you end up having to clean the entire bathroom every time a person goes in. So that's something I wanted to mention, Diane, that I think that's where the concern of needing more help during the day may come in. I also want to mention that I like that $375,000. That sounds like that'll pay for all the COVID-19 tests to start. But when you start, when you start knowing where everybody is, doesn't that make the whole building that much more comfortable and stressless, rather than you letting 12 cases of COVID-19 in and not know it? Just something to think about, okay? Now, in the commissioner and the Department of Education, everybody has something they want to happen. But I think we have to err on the side of caution and think about us in our community. We're out here in the middle of the ocean, figuring it out. And we have to find out what works best for us. I'm concerned with teachers. You know, it's already stressful dealing with what we're dealing with. And then the teachers are going to have to come up with this remote learning plan, this in-school learning plan. That's a lot. Maybe you guys have thought about it and maybe you haven't. What if there were teachers that just taught remote and there were teachers that just came into the building? Is there a way to spread out those specialties? You know, 5 of the English teachers for the 6th grade are in the building. The other 5 are remote, and you divvy it up that way so that the teachers really only have to concentrate on one way that they do it. They have a lot to deal with. They have a lot of responsibility. Our job is to help support them, admin, the whole 9. So that's just something to think about. I know what the state wants us to do, but, you know, is it logical? We cannot stress our people to the point where they can't even do their job. That's a lot. So we have to think carefully and smart. Please take that in consideration when we come up with our plan. We have to think of what's best for everyone involved. We're trying to keep everyone sane, everyone intact, and we're trying to get the learning, the teaching to our students that have already been thrown, you know, an awful, awful ball strike, if you will, over the last 6 months. So how do we fix that? How do we make that better instead of worse? Our intention is not to make it worse, but we really have to think logically here. That's important. And the state's not going to do it for us. They're trying to get us to figure it out. Well, you know what? Maybe Nantucket comes up with a plan that nobody else has thought of, and it works. Something to think about.
Thanks, Zona. I think it is a very difficult, very stressful time. And as I said last time we met, this is probably the hardest thing that school districts have ever had to work out in such a short period of time. And it is very serious. And I know that the efforts of the committees and the leadership team and with Dr. Hallett, I know everybody is always keeping our students and our teachers at the forefront of their minds to keep them safe. And the reality is we could do all of this work and then, you know, come September, we're back to where we were in March. So I think we have to be prepared for all kinds of scenarios. And, you know, we are not going to put our kids in jeopardy or our teachers in jeopardy for the sake because somebody is telling us we need to reopen our schools. We felt strongly as a school committee at the beginning of this that we were not going to be open for everybody while every non-essential businesses were closing around us. It didn't make sense to us as a district to be jeopardizing our children and our parents. Parents and teachers. So that hasn't gone away. But I think, you know, we don't know what we're going to look like yet in September as far as the island is concerned. So I appreciate all the work that's going in. It's hours and hours and hours, and it's stressful work, but thank you. And I appreciate this update tonight. And I know that you'll keep us updated as you go along. We will be coming back on the 13th to continue this discussion. But thank you, everybody, for your really passionate questions. This is not an easy subject at all. And this is not taken lightly. So thank you. I'd like to move on to committee discussions and votes, please. And so let's see, may I have a approval to accept the revised district calendar? May I have a motion to approve, please?
Motion to approve, Zona Butler.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Just as a point of discussion on this before we take a vote, it can be revised. This is not a done deal. Again, it's a moving target. We realize that, but we wanted to get this voted on tonight so that Beth had something to work with. So I'm going to do a roll call vote for the accepting the calendar. Jenn Erichsen.
Aye.
Steve Sodovic.
Aye.
Zona Butler.
Aye.
And Tim Lepre.
Aye.
Thank you. Pauline Proch, aye. May I have a vote approval, please, for the policy EFD, which is collection of money for food services?
Move approval.
Thank you,
Zona
Tim.
Butler.
May I- Second, Zona. And I'm looking for a voice vote. Jenn Erichsen.
Aye.
Steve Sodovic.
Aye.
Tim Lepre.
Aye.
Zona Butler. Zona, yes?
I said aye.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Pauline Proch, aye. Vote approval, please, to amend the policy ICA, school year, school calendar. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Thank you,
Zona
Tim.
Butler.
Second, Zona Butler, thank you. Jenn Erichsen, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Steve Sodovic, your vote, please.
Aye.
Thank you. Tim Lepre?
Aye.
Thank you. Zona Butler?
Aye.
Thank you. Pauline Proch, aye. We are looking for approval, please, to extend an offer to hire Deborah Gately, the new Special Services Director for fiscal year 2021. May I have a motion, please?
So
So
moved,
moved.
Zona Butler.
Thank you. Move approval. Zona Butler, second by Tim, I believe. Thank you. Jenn Erichsen, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Steve Sodovic, yes, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted a brief discussion so that everybody knew that the reason this has come up sort of at the last minute is that we didn't have the opportunity, Ms. Proch and I, to interview Deborah until yesterday. And so
Correct.
that's why this has come up tonight and was not on the original agenda. And if you're asking for my vote, it's aye.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for that explanation. Tim Lepre
Aye.
and Zona Butler. Thank you, and Pauline Proch, aye. I'd like a vote approval, please, for the minutes of July 7th, 2020.
So moved.
Thank you. May I have a second? I
Second.
don't know who this was. That second, Tim. Thank you. Jen, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Steve Sodovic?
Is this, I didn't quite hear you. Is this the minutes from our last meeting,
This is from July 7th.
July
This is
7th?
July 7th.
Okay.
Yes.
Aye.
Thank you. Tim Lepre
Aye.
and Zona Butler?
Aye.
Pauline Proch, aye. May I have a approval, please, for the July 24th meeting minutes? That this is the school committee meeting on the 24th.
So
Move
moved,
approval.
Zona Butler.
Tim, move
Discussion,
approval. Yes, Steve.
Well, I have to
One
ask for a
second, sorry.
modification.
Okay, hold on one second. Zona Butler second, and now we can have discussion. Open to you, Steve.
Yeah, one basic quarrel I have is that those minutes indicate that I was unhappy with the vote on who would be our negotiators. I think, and I went back and checked YouTube, that what I said was it had been our usual practice to have 2 members, and I thought that's what we should do. So I would ask that that language be changed from, I don't have it right here in front of me, Mr. Sordovic didn't like the idea, to Mr. Sordovic pointed out that in the past we had always had 2 school committee members.
Any other comments on that from the committee? No? Okay. Logan? Recognizing you.
I thought that it was just recognizing that that was separate from the original reorg meeting where you had determined who was part of the negotiations committee, so that this would be a separate one. And that you seemed to indicate that you weren't completely pleased with doing that, which is why I wrote it like that. So I'm happy to amend it. But that was the way that it.
Yeah, I didn't intend to be referencing the original reorganization meeting, just that that's what we always did with negotiations with the union, was to have 2 school committee members. So that would satisfy me, that one sentence.
Thank you. So is that an affirmative vote, Steve?
As amended, yes.
As amended, yes. Okay. Tim Lepre?
Aye.
Thank you. And Zona Butler? Aye. Okay. And Pauline Proch, aye. Thank you. As amended. 24th of July, 2020, executive meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve?
Point of order, Madam Chairman, if I may.
Yes. Yes, sir.
I would move to table these minutes. I don't believe that we should be publishing minutes of executive sessions until the about collective bargaining, until that collective bargaining has been completed. I believe that's the way the law allows us to do it, and it's the way we've always done it in the past. So I think that a motion to table precedes a motion to approve, if I remember my Robert's rules correctly.
Yes.
And so I move to table these minutes.
So we would need to have a second and see if there is any further discussion. Is there a second to table minutes? Okay. Any discussion? Any comments on?
I thought a motion to table was not discussable.
I thought it was. Okay, yeah, and I think you could be right there. Okay, then we'll go straight to a vote to table the minutes of the executive session. Janilla?
Aye.
Steve Sordovic?
Aye.
Tim Lepre?
Aye.
Zona Butler?
Aye.
Okay, Pauline Proch, aye. Thank you. Transfers and invoices. May I have a motion for transfers, please, and invoices?
So moved.
Second.
Steve Sordovic, may I have a second? Tim Lepre? Zona Butler, your vote, please.
Aye.
Janilla?
Aye.
Thank you. Tim Lepre?
Aye.
Steve Sordovic?
Aye.
And Pauline Proch, aye. Thank you, everyone. All right. Beth, I hope we gave you enough time to take a breath. If you'd like to please come back and discuss with us your entry plan. Thank you.
I'd be happy to. So as you may be aware, all new superintendents are usually asked to present an entry plan, which is traditionally 90-day or 100-day plans. In some cases, they could be longer. This is a chance for a new superintendent, even one who has been in a district for a considerable amount of time, to collect information through entry interviews under the role of superintendent. It's also a great opportunity for a district to share what it feels details about the inner workings and the organization of the district. It allows a community to also share thoughts and dreams, hopes and dreams, kind of thing. So it's an opportunity for this exchange of information, which is really helpful and useful as a new superintendent begins a tenure. So I am excited to be able to start this plan. It will allow me to collect information through some entry interviews, and I'm going to be calling each one of you on the school committee to set up my interview either the end of this week or next week. It allows me to look at extensive documents, a review of district documents and data. I'll also be doing entry interviews with students, with staff, with parents, with community members, and collecting a lot of different anecdotal information as well as qualitative and quantitative. And then to present findings at a school committee meeting in the future to talk about strategic goals, objectives. And so it's a great opportunity. Clearly, this year has kind of thrown a wrench in things with COVID-19 in full swing. Most new superintendents, including myself, have been extremely busy trying to get things up and running, and the entry plan has kind of taken a little bit of a back burner. However, I am very fortunate to have a wonderful superintendent coach that I've been working with, Matt King, through the new superintendent induction program, and he has been advising me as well as other new superintendents on how to adjust the original plan that I had put together to kind of incorporate this new normal. So in the next week, I hope to begin some of those entry interviews and clearly work with individual school committee members, community members, leaders in the community, teachers, staff, et cetera, to be able to start this plan. And clearly in our next full school committee meeting, I will present ahead of time the written plan for you to review and ask questions about. But I really look forward to sitting down with each of you and also with members of the district leadership team too, to get an idea. And it will be hard, but we will want to talk also about things that are what life was like before COVID-19. So I think that can give us kind of some insight and help us understand where this particular pandemic has also changed our district. So I think it will be a very interesting process, and I'm looking forward to it. Would you like me to continue, or should I entertain? Yes. Okay, very good. So our hiring update. So we are very close to completing our hiring. We have an oceanography position that I believe there were final interviews and perhaps an offer extended and waiting to hear back. So that's something that is good to know. Obviously, you have heard that there is an opportunity for me to offer the position of special services director to Deborah Gately. We're excited about that. And the elementary and intermediate schools are in good shape. We are still looking for an English learner teacher at the elementary school and also a 0.5 social worker. At CPS, we have decided to suspend the search for a computer tech teacher because in the current scheduling that we're going through with remote, we are realizing that we do have electives that we are able to use, and it would be helpful to consider suspending the search. Also, because we have not found high quality candidates, and we have had our posting up for many months. So at this moment, we will be suspending that search for now. We also, I will be adding a new stipend that is, we have a position available to add a new stipend. This has been vetted through the district leadership team and also through the union to agree on an EL department head position. Currently, EL does not have representation on the leadership team at Nantucket High School, and currently now it is so crucial essential that our department our department leaders have the opportunity to work together, particularly when it comes to all things COVID cohort A. And so we felt it was really necessary for this to happen, particularly in the situation that we're in. So I just wanted to share that as well. And that is what I've got for hiring. For enrollment, we have not seen that huge wave of expected people to come in. We currently have 13 new enrollments, but we also had 10 withdrawals. So we are only seeing at this moment 3 additional students added to our rosters. That may change in the coming weeks. Now that we have seen the survey come out, now that our plan is close to being shared, we may see some changes there. So that is what I've got.
Thank you very much, Beth. Any comments, questions for Beth from what she just presented? If you would just raise your hand so I could see if you have any comments. Seeing no hands raised, we'll move on to subcommittee work. Is anybody like to report on any of the subcommittees they've met?
I would like to mention that, we have a safety and security subcommittee. I think that committee should be part of the whole COVID safety plan. Don't you guys think? Hello? Anybody there?
No, I think that is something you can follow up with Beth Hallett. I think that the groups have been put together, but I would say if there are comments or if you want minutes from there or a sidebar conversation, I think that would be fine.
I just think it gives an opportunity. I think it's an opportunity for us to be in on the ground floor with. That's just my thought.
Okay, I would ask you to follow up with Beth on that. As she's moving on, if that's okay. Steve, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to support what Zona is saying. I mean, we have policy about safety and health, and we have a subcommittee that deals with those things. And I think it would be a good idea for them to be involved. I think it's Jenn and Zona. So I'm just support that idea.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Did any of the other, yes, Beth, sorry.
Just to share through the chair, of course, we have been looking at some policies. I certainly can attest to that we have been looking at some health policies and addressing those with our nurses to see if we need to make amendments. So that is in the works with regard to safety around COVID-19 and particularly that. And I'm happy to work with any of you who would like to have additional information available. So.
Great, thank you. We don't have a student representative. I don't know when we'll have that announced. Just 1 second, sorry, Jenn. I didn't say I keep going off screen here and I don't see you. Jenn, go ahead.
Thank you. I will say I am on the Safety and Security Committee, and I do agree and I appreciate the other school committee members recognizing that at some level that committee that has always met, and I've been on that committee for going on 9 years, also includes police and fire. And I think that that's really important to include as we sort out how do we handle fire drills, et cetera, and safety protocols. I do think that we should somehow bring our Safety and Security Committee into our planning. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jenn. Okay. Agenda for the next week, next meeting, as I mentioned earlier, we're meeting on August 13th. Any other changes other than we've got the fourth quarter budget that Martin is willing to present? Oh no, that's actually on the August 26th. Sorry, I apologize. So really the August 13th is going to be the vote on the reopening plan. And then on the 26th, as you can see on the agenda, we've got the food service update, the authorization of student accounts, and we will be looking at the school committee progress on goals and district and superintendent goals. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. Again, I would encourage the community who is listening tonight or who will be listening to the reruns of this, and our staff to continue to reach out, whether it's to myself on the school committee, other members, and also to Dr. Hallett for questions and concerns. We have a very robust parent committee that Steve and I sit on. It's a community and parent liaison committee for the COVID replanning of school. And they are also reaching out to their friends and social supports and other parents to get their comments. And they're actually taking on some work in order to keep the communication coming to us, which is really important. We need to continue to be able to hear from folks. So thank you. At this point, if there isn't any other points of business, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Tim. May I have a second? Second by Steve Soderbeck. Jen, may I have your vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Zona Butler?
Aye.
Thank you, Tim.
Aye.
Aye. Steve?
Aye.
A robust aye, and Pauline Proch aye. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you on the 13th. Thank you, everyone. Good night.